Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to the Mid-Morning Show with me, Zaheerah Bham-Ismail. The show is proudly sponsored by African Muslim Agency, empowering, educating and inspiring. You can visit their website on www.africanmuslimagency.co.za. After that heated discussion, we're now going into something a little bit more relaxed, something inspiring, and I'd like to welcome the amazing Fatima Collins to our platform here at Salam Media. Assalamu alaikum, Fatima, and welcome.
Walaikum salam, Zaheerah. Thank you for having me.
It's such a pleasure. Fatima, I have to say this. I think for all these years, I don't think any of us know exactly what you do. And I always find it absolutely fascinating that we have these remarkable, amazing women around us who so humbly carry themselves through this world without us even realizing the impact that you're making. I mean, Fatima, I'm reading about who you are, and I've known you for years, and I don't think I've ever known much about you in terms of this. She's an experienced development advisory and impact consultant that has worked across various industries in 4 countries. Her experience over a 20-year career includes renewable energy for a World Bank project at the Development Bank South Africa, corporate banking in Mumbai, and socioeconomic strategy and design. Fatima, you have traveled the world. You have worked on gender equality projects that support the growth, development, and succession of women. You mentor on the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Women Program. You've been a mentor to female entrepreneurs that have been funded by this program. You work on the UN Women in South Africa on conceptualizing the first gender bond. And you've also been a member of the UNHCR Business Women's Network and also a member of the Shared Value Africa Initiative Working Group that advocates for gender equality. And it still goes on. She is currently the regional head for the Women in Mining project at Sibanye Stillwater, a patron of women in mining in South Africa and the UN Global Compact for Gender Equity. And you hold a master's degree in business administration from the Graduate School of Business at UCT and also a certified yoga practitioner. Fatima, I feel like I need a huge breath after that. How do you manage this all?
Thanks, Zaheerah. It's been a long journey. 20 years. I think I've had enough time to manage the journey. And again, it was just basically finding what I love, which I'm grateful for. In my initial years of my career, I didn't quite know what I wanted to do, and it went through many phases of trying to find out what it is that I enjoy. But I've landed socioeconomic development, working with women. The work I do currently is exactly where I want to be.
How do you end up finding that space where you belong? Because I think for so many young women, you come out of matric, people are asking you, what do you want to do? And I think even at our age, we're still redefining ourselves, still finding our feet, not even sure what we like, what we enjoy, trying to find where our niche market fits. Firstly, how would you advise young girls to find their spaces, to be true to themselves?
So I think it's just about being open. And I think that's exactly it. At 18, nobody should be expected to know what they want to do for the rest of their life because life's very long. And as we evolve as people, we understand what truly matters. I think for some people, it's a calling deep down, but how do you get to that calling? And I can't, when you only have one type of life experience, you only um, aspire to be to fit into that box. So I think for me, I'd like to tell young women that there's various ways of living, and go out there, explore the different ways, and maybe you come back to the one you've always known. That's fine, but give yourself a chance to explore both in your personal and your professional development, and don't ever feel restricted and see and feel like you just run your own race. Basically, don't feel like you need to do what your colleagues are doing, what your friends are doing, what your family expects you to do. Explore and know that it's okay not to do one thing for all of your life. I've changed careers 4 times, and I'm probably going to have one more career change in my life. And just know that it's okay. I think it's a bit easier with this generation, Zaira. When we grew up, it was a bit more regimented. You kind of needed to go to school, do well, go to varsity, and get into a career. I think parents and the workspace and university give people a bit more chance to grow, but it's harder for women because they've got their childbearing years. They need to get up to speed with their career and then have babies between a certain time. So there's a lot for women to juggle. But I think if I had to tell them one thing, it would be relax. It's okay. It all works out.
Just Just breathe. I love that. And I have to say this, I think that was one of the best bits of advice you've given me is I remember when my second daughter was in her eccentric moment and I was so stressed about her just being okay and fitting in, and you said to me, just let it go, let her be. She has her own journey to walk and she has her own light she breathes, and let her just be herself. And I've never ever forgotten that. And I think so often, as you're saying, we just have to let people be, because everyone's space is written and the world needs everybody, not just a certain box character that we think will only fit into our community. And with that, I have to ask you, how on earth do you manage to fit in a mining sector, which is predominantly a male dominated industry? How have you fitted in there? And in terms of the challenges that you've seen or experienced?
So for many years, on and off, I worked in the mining industry as a consultant. But this is my first job in a mining house, and I'm fortunate enough to head up women in mining. It's a tough industry. It's a tough industry for so many reasons. The work is physically hard. It's male dominated. Um, the people that join the mining industry are hard. So I think that's why they need people that do the job I do, so that we can come in there and bring things to the attention of men, because people just don't see you if you're not in the right place, if you don't make enough noise. But if a credit to the company I work for that actually dedicated a whole person to look after the needs of women in mining. And I look at anything from policy to infrastructure, um, to mining methodologies, to employee wellness, gender-based violence. My biggest challenge to date is gender-based violence and bullying in the workplace. While we get it in all workplaces. It's harder in the mining industry because it's so male dominated, and because the mindset of miners generally is a bit more harsh.
Mm. And then navigating that, I'm sure, takes its physical toll on you as well, because this is not just navigating it or being a voice, it's also managing it and finding a way forward. How do you cope with the emotional toll of what you have to do?
So in the initial days, it was hard because you take a lot on, especially stuff around gender-based violence. When it comes to policies and procedures, you can sit around a boardroom and talk about that and negotiate those things. But when it comes to gender-based violence, and you see how we as humans destroy each other, that takes its toll. I think for me, the easiest thing was to just understand my limitations in my role, um, work from a place of authenticity, understand that I'm doing my best, and then just trusting. But also, I made a promise years ago that certain things just won't happen under my watch, and one of them is bullying, abuse. Uh, if it's under my watch, gender-based violence. So in the workplace, um, I'm privileged enough to be able to say, not under my watch, and I have the support of all my colleagues when it comes to trying to find solutions.
Amazing. And you really are truly a woman breaking barriers in that regard, because I think so many people are afraid of using their voice in a situation or in a surrounding that is so drowned out by the male voices telling you what should be or how it is or what the norm is or what the cultural norms are, and that you should just abide by that. It takes great courage to be able to be that voice. What advice would you give to women who are trying to tread into this field? Because I think you mentioned right now in terms of having limitations, having boundaries, so that you understand how much you are able to do without it compromising any part of you. How do you manage that, or what would be your advice in terms of the character or the kind of person you have to be, the resilience you need to have to be functioning in an environment like this?
So, firstly, I'd say you need to have the right qualifications, because if you know your job, that's a weak spot everybody would may or may not detect. So, know your stuff. When you're going into a situation, understand, be willing to learn, and networks are really important. Understand who does what in an organization. Find out who can help you do your job better. But it's inner resilience. Just understand that you're here to do the best, and no one. This is your space. No one's going to take it away from you. You're not going to let anybody invade it, and you're going to speak up for yourself. If you find that you can't, then that's where you find your allies. find the people that
Mm.
will speak up for you. Networking in the corporate world is so important. Ensure that you understand how it works, who you can talk to, but most importantly, you got to believe in yourself, and you got to believe in the value you bring to an organization, because that's probably the first place someone's going to attack you, is your self-worth and your worth that you bring into the workspace. So make sure that you build that up, and it's not there's no end point to that. It's continual. You need to you need to build yourself up continually. You need to build your skills up so that you and I think the last thing is to be cooperative. Um, to survive in any environment, whether it's a family structure, a home structure, be cooperative, understand how to work with other people, um, and 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 understand conflict resolution, because that'll get you far.
I think a pertinent topic, which also understanding conflict resolution, which doesn't just tie into this, it literally ties into every discussion we've had on in the studio on marital relationships, nikah contracts, all of that throughout this week. Fatima, in terms of having, as a South African, there's no way we can walk into an environment, especially one like this, not having respect or an understanding of cultural values and cultural systems. We can't go in thinking we can impose our own cultures onto somebody else and your own belief system. With your traveling and the current environment that you're in, how have you found your exposure has impacted or affected how you manage or are so open to accepting of different mindsets, cultural biases, cultural values, and respect?
Zaira, we grew up in apartheid, right? So the only things we knew was each other. We only
Mm.
knew how we think and how we operate. And our world was the everything was right the way we did it. But it's exposure, it's traveling, and just being open to understanding how people do things differently. And it really was in those travels as a young person that I understood that maybe there is a different way to do things. And I think most importantly, what I learned over the years is that there's no right or wrong. you know there's
Mm.
merit in everything, as long as there's no violation of anyone's person, anyone's human rights. There's different ways of doing things, and it was in embracing that I understood that, God, I don't know anything. There's so much I
Mm.
need to learn, and the world is such a good teacher. um, it's just about opening up. And I think that, I've always said people that are headstrong and are stubborn are generally insecure. Because if you hold on to something so tightly, whether it's a belief system, whether it's a relationship, um, it really means that you're frightened about something else, and maybe just let the fear go, um, and just feel like you don't know everything, and understand what different cultures can bring. And of course, you don't have to embrace anything, but there's an understanding that's required if you need to navigate the world.
I feel like that is an entire conversation I can have with you completely on its own, because there's so much of wisdom and merit in what you're saying that I think definitely doesn't just apply to a work environment. It's generally good life advice. Fatima, what would have been the one piece of advice that you wish you had received early on in your career or when you entered into the work field?
Definitely, just relax, it's going to be okay. Zara, I did so many different things. Like, I started off my career as a microbiologist. I did a BSc at Wits, and then I worked in different parts of the world in different fields. I worked for an NGO. I worked in medical, worked with medical devices. I worked in corporate banking. And every time I felt like, oh no, what am I doing? Um, am I wasting my time? When am I going to find the thing I like? There was an inner panic, and I wish I wish somebody told me, don't panic. It all comes together. I can't tell you how I find myself in a situation and I pull on experiences from a laboratory in London, or I'm in a room and I'm looking at some documents, and something I did in corporate banking in Bombay helps me solve something, or I'm having a conversation with people at work, and I remember something I did as an NGO when I worked in Toronto, and I just wish that I knew that it all does come together, and you don't have to panic. You just need to just you just need to trust more. I think I'd like to leave the young people with that. Just trust, it does come together.
And I think that ties in so much with our general value system that we understand that everything is written out for us. Whatever is meant for you will be yours. So don't hesitate in opening the right doors for the right people to be able to enter them, for any people to be able to enter them, because nobody will be able to take away anything that is yours. So, as Fatima is saying, be kind, be gentle, and just breathe. We've got this. Everything turns out fine at the end of it. Fatima,
Yes.
in terms of a mining sector in South Africa, which it's really a tough sector to be in. I mean, we know this, we know the challenges. Would you advise women to enter into this field, to enter into this line of work?
For sure, what I'd like to say to women is that if there's something you're passionate about, go for it. Don't even think about the restrictions, because you work your way. You co-create it with through your destiny. You co-create your place in this world, and it is difficult and it is hard, but it's also evolving.
Mm,
Mining, say 20 years ago to what it is now, it's more welcoming than it was before. And it doesn't have to be your hardcore mining. We need all sorts of skills in the mining sector. We need environmentalists. We need people that work in the socioeconomic sector. We need people that work in finance. We need people that work in risk and audit. So it's not only you don't only have to be underground. You don't have to be a mining engineer. If that's what you like, of course. Um, People like myself and companies like the company I work for, working really hard to see how we can automate processes so that women, because of our physical constraints and our physical strength, how we can do it differently, how we can automate processes so it's
mhm.
more friendly and more welcoming for women. So of course, don't be intimidated by it. Um, there's a whole world out there. Be willing to explore, and just know there's a voice in every mining house in South Africa now. There's a voice for diversity. There's a voice for females. If there's anything that intimidates you, you have a place to go. So it's not as scary as it used to be.
I absolutely am very impressed as to how far it's evolving and how quick it's evolving. I mean, to say that, absolutely spot on. That as women, we do have physical constraints that won't allow us to do certain things. But the fact that companies like yours are looking at ways to automate processes so that women can still be involved in a highly lucrative aspect of our country is
Yeah,
huge. I mean, is
it's
this
huge.
something that is being adopted across the board? Are you seeing it in the mining sector in South Africa? Or is this something at the threshold that your company is pushing forward?
I think it's a mining sector in general in South Africa. We have an unemployment rate, I think, unofficially of 40%
Mm,
people in South Africa are unemployed, and we about 53% women in South Africa. We
mm.
we're such big employers of people in South Africa. We can't exclude a whole gender from the mining
Absolutely.
industry. So we have to look at things differently. It's pushed by the Minerals Council South Africa. Many companies across the country are doing it, and yeah, I work. We have operations in the US as well. And we have such different problems. They have 0% unemployment in the state that they're in, etc. And when I look at how far we've come and what we do for our women and our diversity, really groundbreaking as South Africans. We look at the US as the biggest democracy in the world, and we all know that that's not true. And when you see how they work, you understand. You understand how much we're doing for diversity and women in South Africa.
I think your inclusion policies are huge, and I really wish it was discussed a lot more and brought to the forefront. I mean, I'm here celebrating you and the boundaries and barriers that you're breaking, but it's so much more than that because it's really opening doors for an entire gender in South Africa, like you're saying, who are responsible for entire communities. Because I say this very often and with no disrespect to the men, but men will generally look after themselves and women tend to look after communities around them and build communities around them. We know this, we see this, and especially in a country like ours with an unemployment increasing at astronomical rates, the fact that huge pivotal sectors of our country are making spaces and opening spaces for women, I really think this is a conversation that needs to be put at the forefront a lot more and really be brought out into the open. Is there a reason why we're not hearing more of this or that we're not seeing this more apparent and people don't know about it?
I'm not sure. I just think it's where we position ourselves, and it's definitely a conversation for me to have with organizations like Women in Mining South Africa, with the Minerals Council South Africa. I know that as different mining companies, we go out there. There's outreach programs. We talk to women in the communities. We talk to schools in the communities. But it's my firm belief that look at we can't look at girl children that are in grade 10, 11, and 12. We need to start talking to them in the intermediate phases
Mhm.
of their lives. We need to take them out if they're high performers and we see that they have a future. We have to take them out of those environments that constrain them, the environments that make them um, home keepers, so that by the time they get to high school, they choose differently because they've got so
Mhm.
much to do in the home. So I think we need to get to
Absolutely.
our girls earlier, and we need to, and if we have to, we need to remove them from those communities, school them somewhere else, so that they have the full benefit of what's open to them once they're done with school.
Absolutely. Fatima Collins, thank you so much for joining us on air here at Salam Media. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. And I think for women who are consistently breaking barriers, but you're not just doing that, you're opening the door and the platform for women across South Africa. And for that, we salute you. Jazakallah for joining me on air today. And I look very forward to catching up over a cup of coffee and hearing your story further. Assalamu alaikum.
Thanks, Zaheerah. Walaikum salam.
That was Fatima Collins on our Breaking Barriers profiling segment for today. Please stay tuned. After the ad break, we'll continue with the rest of our show.